Hello, hello. Hi. Hope you're well. Hope you're well. Be wavy. Are you good? I made music. I'm doing a song a day challenge where the goals to drop a song a day until the end of the year. I'm saying that again. I dropped 310 songs last year. Link in the description if you want to check that out. Or you can check out my and you can check out my shorts tab, my YouTube shorts tab. I dropped a shorts today. I made a song today and I dropped a short. So you can go check that out, and then you can also check out the link in my description to listen to my music on Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. YouTube. Yeah. I wanted to talk about President Javier Milei, Argentinian president. He spoke at the WEF forum. He spoke at the WEF conference yesterday or the day before yesterday. They met up in Davos in Switzerland, a bunch of world leaders and so on and so forth. And this is like a globalist convention, these globalists meet up and decide how they're going to run our lives without our consent. No one really votes on these policies that end up getting enforced after they're discussed at these forums, at these conferences. We don't get to vote on this shit, but these people meet up and discuss these things that impact our lives. So the Argentinian president, he went there and basically told them they're full of shit, which is such a ballsy move. Very gangster. Very brave. I just want to go over some of the things you're saying, because these globalists, they essentially they believe in collectivism, right? Which is essentially communism, for keeping it a buck. But this guy gave an amazing speech. You should go watch it. Actually, I'll link it in my description. I'll provide a link in my description, and then you can watch it. I actually saw an aside. So the guy speaks Spanish, but someone created an AI version, because the original video has a translator, like a guy who translates what the president is saying as he's speaking, but someone created an AI version that cuts out all the background noise and it provides a translation in the president's accent in English. So he's no longer speaking Spanish, but he's speaking English, and his lips are synced to the words that are coming out of the voiceover, which is insane. So it sounds like he's speaking, and his lips are matching the words as well. His lips are synced to the words, which is AI is crazy, man. So you should watch it just for that, just for the spectacle. But then also listen for the substance. Said a lot of dope things, so let's get into it. So he talks about how Argentina was the world's first world economic power. Argentina. Extremely wealthy country, and this was because of economic principles they adopted that led to them accruing a bunch of wealth. But as they adopted more collectivist principles, they dropped to number 140 in terms of GDP per capita. So as they adopted more socialist policies, their wealth diminished gradually, rapidly, and now they're struggling economically. It's like they're dealing with all sorts of economic issues. in comes this guy, this Javier Milei. I think he's the world's first libertarian president. That's what someone said he's the world's first libertarian president. So he's coming with these capitalist economic principles, which is essentially minimize role of government, and allow people to trade freely in the market. So one of the things he did is he reduced regulation in the housing market, and as a result, supply in the housing market went up and prices went down by 20%. Prices went down by 20%. So you're paying rent, 20% less rent. Do you know how insane that is? And that's a rapid change. That happened like this. He started December 10th last year. So I'm looking forward to seeing if there's more positive change he can bring about in that country, because they're struggling economically right now. Because socialism is cancer. It's absolute cancer. But let's get into more of what he said. So I was writing down key points of his speech. He said from year 0 to around 1800, the world's per capita GDP from year 0 to around 1800, the world's per capita GDP remained basically the same. So its GDP remained basically the same for the years to 1800. Everything increased suddenly and exponentially in the 19th century. So in the 19th century, everything increased. So from 1800 onwards, everything's so explosive growth. Why? Why is that? Oh, by the way, the sole exception to that stagnation was the founding of America in the 15th century. So in the 15th century, America was the only little bump in that otherwise very straight line. So what we see, so from year 0 to 800, so it's obviously when we say year 0, death of Christ, the calendar reset after the death of Christ, so that's regarded as year 0 from there. So from that year 0 to 1800, global GDP per capita, the annual growth rate of the global GDP was 0.02% from year 0 to 1800. 0.02%, which is nothing. It's basically zero change. If every year you're experiencing a 0.02% growth rate, you're not growing. In the 19th century, after the introduction of the Industrial Revolution, annual growth. So in the 19th century, after the introduction of the Industrial Revolution, annual growth rate reaches 0.66%. Interesting. So Industrial Revolution, now that very stagnant growth rate goes from 0.02% to 0.66%, which means it says here 107 years. It'll take 107 years for the world to double its GDP per capita. Now, before it wasn't really growing. Now it's 0.66%. In 107 years, they can double the GDP, which is insane. It's to double your GDP. So now there's a pathway forward. Okay, they say in 107 years, if we keep this up, we will double our GDP now. Now we see something interesting. From 1900 to 1950, that growth rate of 0.66% goes to 1.66%. Goes to 1.66%, which means now it takes 66 years to double the GDP. At 0.66%, it took 107 years to double the GDP, global GDP. Now it's 1.66. From 1900 to 1950, it's 1.66, and it'll take 66 years. So now we see things are speeding up. Then from 1950 to 2000, it goes from 1.66 to 2.1%. Now it's going to take 33 years to double the GDP. Then from 2000 to 2023, it goes from 2.1% to 3%. Now it's going to take 23 years to double the GDP. So from 1800 to now, global GDP has multiplied by more than 15 times. More than 15 times. 15 times. More than 15 times. 90% of the world's population is lifted out of poverty as a result. 90%. In 1800, 90% of the world lived in extreme poverty. So before 1800, 90% of the world lived in abject poverty, like extreme poverty. The number dropped to 5%. By 2020, number dropped to 5% prior to the pandemic. Because we know what these lockdowns did and these stupid restrictions. We know what that did to the economy. I'm telling you, man, these stupid restrictions, these laws that were imposed during that period, they did more harm than that virus ever did. It's not even close. It's actually insane that we let them do that, and that a lot of people went along with it as well. Anyway, so the question is, what caused all this growth? You go from year 0 to year 1800. There's poverty. 90% of the world is poor, like poor. And then from that point onward, we start to see growth, exponential growth, until the point where only 5% of the world remains in absolute poverty, like abject poverty. Here in Africa, I live in South Africa. Africa's a continent, it's not a country. Here in South Africa, even most of the poorest among us have smartphones. Even poor people have smartphones. That puts you ahead of most people in history. You've got access to incredible amounts of information and resources just because of this little device. And then things like transport, food, even shelter have become more accessible than ever before. So it's true when we say 90% of the world was lifted out of abject poverty. People who live now are far wealthier than people who lived back in the day. It's not even close. So then the question is why? How did this happen? How do we see this incredible rise of wealth? Well, we talked about the Industrial Revolution. As you introduce new forms of industry, new forms of business, trade, wealth begins to generate. We start to see opportunities for people to make money, for people to trade, and very sophisticated monetary system developed as a result. And you start to see banks become more sophisticated as well, where now the business model evolves to the point where it can give the average citizen credits or loans so that people can get loans and start businesses, for example, get loans and go to school so that they can get an education and get jobs and stuff like that. So my mom got a loan to buy her truck that she uses for a furniture business. Then she pays back that loan gradually. And she pays back that loan on a monthly basis. And it allows her to make money, the money that she used to get that truck. She now has a truck. She uses that truck to make more money that she uses to put this roof over our heads and food in our fridge and so on and so forth, and pay for all sorts of things. This would not have been possible without a bank that gives people loans for education, loans for getting certain assets, loans for getting homes, so on and so forth. That's one example, like banking, how that revolutionized everything. You can save your money in a bank, for example. You can put a bunch of money in a bank and they give you interest. So now You keep your money with the bank and they pay you to keep money with them. So now when you take that money out 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it would have matured. You'll have more than when you put it in initially. So this is how wealth gets generated. That's one example. You got the automotive industry, people making cars, for example. You got these big factories that emerge as a result. Now they're employing thousands of people, millions of people around the world. That generates wealth, and people can open up bank accounts, and you see how the bank accounts, now you can take, if you build up your credit enough, now you can take out loans and you can pay back your loans gradually, while also using that money that you got from the bank to finance other areas of your life. Maybe you want to start your own business and you generate more wealth that way. You can buy a home with a loan and use that home to rent out, to get tenants who can then pay you rent, and then you can use that money to pay back your loan, and so on and so forth. It's unbelievable, the different avenues that are open, all these different industries that are open. People end up opening different shops as more different industries emerge. YouTube is a great example. Video sharing. I don't own YouTube. I'm benefiting off of someone else's work. Someone created YouTube. Now I'm here making ASMR videos, and I get paid through ad revenue, which is another thing. Advertising, which is another market, another industry now. People get paid off of that, and so we're all eating off of these businesses that emerge, these industries that emerge. Well, everyone benefits. You need entrepreneurs, you need business in order for wealth to generate. We see from the years 0 to 1800, there was no economic growth. From 1800 until now, we see unbelievable exponential growth. It's crazy the amount of growth that happened in such a short amount of time. So it's obvious what happened is people were doing business, but now you have these socialist types that are saying we need to restrict business. So what the president was saying, Argentina has been debating this topic, the merits of capitalism versus socialism. They've been debating for 80 years. Remember, they started out as the world's first economic power. They were very wealthy, very rich. The moment they started employing socialist economic policies, the economy tanked. Now there are 140 in the world right now. They're struggling. The economy is struggling. People are poor. It's like, guys. So there are people who are actively fighting against the very thing that reduced the world's poverty from 90% to 5%. I think it was actually 95% to 5%. They're fighting that thing. They're saying no. Redistribute wealth, tax, heavy tax. Let's talk about tax for a bit, because tax requires coercion. No one pays tax voluntarily. I get taxed, but when YouTube pays me, they reduce. Like, I see the amount that I earned in the month through ad revenue, and they take a bit off of that amount for tax, and then they pay me the rest. And it's not a bit, it's actually quite a lot. No one pays tax voluntarily. Tax requires coercion. So the government is essentially saying, pay us tax or else. So the heavier the tax burden, the heavier the coercion. The more you're being forced. So tax is theft. That's all tax is. It's just theft. The government just stealing your money. This concept that you work hard and then we take the money in order to redistribute it towards other people, which makes no sense. If I go out in a boat and I fish and I bring back a bunch of fish, and then someone comes to me, the village chief or whatever, and he says, give us your fish. It's like, bitch, no. It's insane. But that's where we're at now. That's how people move. That's what people believe is acceptable. Here's the reality of socialism. It places a bottleneck on innovation. So there's this concept of economic discovery. You're an entrepreneur. You want to make money, you want to start a business. So you enter the market and you try to see what sticks, what doesn't stick. You want to explore your different options. What ends up, the issue with over-regulation is it limits your range of exploration, and it actively punishes entrepreneurs for their success through heavy taxation and high regulation, which limits growth. It limits how much you're able to negotiate. It limits the prices you're able to set. It limits the industries you're able to get into. It limits a lot. So what we see is the more regulation there is, the less growth there is. So I gave the example of how the Argentinian president, before he entered his tenure, his term, the Argentinian housing market was steeply priced. It was 20% more than what it is now. The moment he entered and removed a lot of these regulatory laws, the price went down by 20% of the housing market. Prices of the housing market went down by 20%. This is all because of senseless, stifling regulation. Because these fools keep trying to control everything. You know, the farmers in Germany are protesting right now because these environmentalists have been telling them that your tractors use diesel and it's bad for the environment, so stop using your little diesel tractors. Just use electric tractors, which is not a solution. Because number one, they can't afford the electric tractors. Are you gonna buy them for them? No. They never have any real solutions. They just tell you that stop doing this, which means die. Like, stop feeding your family. That's what it means. But it's like, this is how I feed my family. What are you talking about? But anyway, they say stop using diesel, start using electric tractors, which is stupid. I can't afford it. But also, they're not nearly as efficient as the diesel tractors. So not only are you asking me to fork out incredible amounts of money out of my own pocket, which I don't have the money, but on top of that, you're asking me to be less efficient in my work, in my business. It's idiotic. And also, it doesn't even quote unquote save the environment. I don't think the environment needs saving, but that's another topic for another day. The amount of electricity that would need to be generated to get the same amount of work done, it becomes a self-defeating cycle. Because how much resources would have to be expended to generate that amount of electricity? It's like, come on, these people don't think. Let's talk about EVs for a second, because someone was talking about how the issue with electronic vehicles, they can't travel great distances. So what ends up happening is, for various reasons, right? The faster you move, the more battery you deplete. So what's end up happening is, this thing will calculate and say, if you have a Tesla, it'll say it's going to take this much energy to get to this point. So it'll calculate your route and say, yeah, you can make it. Then you go, but then you're moving at a higher speed than it anticipated. And then your battery runs out before you get to your destination. And the issue is, these power stations where you can charge your car are far apart. So the nearest power station might be miles and miles and miles away. So now you have to get towed to the nearest power station. Are the tow trucks running on electricity as well? No. The tow trucks are running fucking petrol and fuel, whether it be diesel or unleaded or whatever. So again, it's a self-defeating cycle. Like, you're not solving any problem. But these people don't think, man. But anyway, so a lot of these, you look at America right now, right? America, wealthiest nation in the world. It's currently in decline economically. It's struggling, and a lot of people can feel it. There's high inflation. Things are becoming more expensive. The housing prices are going up and up and up and up. Tax is going up in a lot of places. Life is just becoming expensive in America, which is supposed to be the wealthiest nation in the world. People can feel it. And it's because of these idiotic socialist policies that are a result of overregulation. They keep trying to control the market. Let people trade. Stop imposing yourself. The state should have very limited, in fact, just stay away from the market. There should be some intervention, but very, very little. I pointed out to you from the year 0 to 1800, 0.02% annual growth in GDP. From 1800 until now, it went from 0.02 to 3%, which means in 23 years, right? 23 years, we can double our global GDP. But that 23 years is only if we maintain the same practices that got us to this point. If we now start saying, let's impose heavy regulation and restrictions, what that 3% is going to start reducing. So we were experiencing growth. Imagine a graph. The moment we start imposing all these restrictions, it's going to start doing this. So it's no longer this, but now it's this. These people piss me off, man. It's immoral because you're making people poor. Bro, 90% to 5% in poverty. 90% of the world was poor, now it's 5%. That 5% is going to start increasing because of these idiotic policies. Who are these people, man? I despise socialism with a passion. It just breeds suffering. That's all it ever does. No one benefits from it. People talk about Scandinavia. It's usually out of ignorance. First, the Prime Minister of Denmark publicly stated that Denmark is a market economy. So even the Scandinavians want nothing to do with socialism. They hate being called socialist because no one wants to be a socialist. No one who's thinking wants to be a socialist. Denmark is a market economy. That's what he said. Prime Minister of Denmark. All 4 countries in Scandinavia have higher individual and family tax burdens than US. So Sweden. So if you compare Sweden and the US, so if 2 families both had so if 2 fathers from 2 families earned $54,000 per month, let's say, dollars, which is a lot. Per year, I don't know. Whatever. The guy from Sweden would pay $20,000 to $25,000 in tax, which is almost 50%. So if he's earning $54,000, he'd pay $20,000 to $25,000 in tax. In the USA, no, sorry, I got that wrong. He pays way more than that. He would have 20 to 25 left after tax in Sweden. In the USA, he would have 39 left after tax. So in Sweden, he's paying 50%, if not more. No, there's no way he's paying more. I guess it depends on certain things, but 54,000 minus tax equals 20 to 25,000. Because I know in some Scandinavian countries they pay 40-something%, so it's almost 50% in tax. So in the USA, you'd be left with around 39,000. They have high tax burdens, and then they pay 25% in VAT for all consumables. So every time you swipe your card on something, 25% VAT. That adds up. That's too much. How are you paying 25% VAT? That's way too much money. That's insane. 25% VAT is crazy, but that's what they're paying. They complain about this all the time. They have a word for it. Is it in Sweden? They have a word for this tax burden. I don't know. I don't know what the word is, but it's so bad that they named the issue. They gave the issue a name. So people talk about how it's so nice in Scandinavia and da, 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 da. These people are not happy. These Scandinavian countries are successful despite the socialism, not because of it. Volvo, H&M, Ericsson, these are companies that are in Scandinavia. They enjoy many benefits of capitalism, including no minimum wage, hiring and firing as they please, and there was something else. Low corporate tax. So it's not socialist in that sense. Scandinavia isn't socialist when it comes to Volvo, H&M, and Ericsson. It allows those companies to flourish because they know. In fact, since the 90s, they've been rolling back a lot of these socialist policies because the GDP has been shrinking. It's been contracting because of this overregulation. Socialism doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's just a lie. The only country that has a higher GDP than the US and Scandinavia, I think is Finland, right? And the only reason that is the case is because of it sells some natural gas or something. It has nothing to do with socialist principles and everything to do with the fact that they're selling some natural resource. They have a high repository of some natural resource that they're selling. That's why they have so much money. It's nothing to do with socialist policies. And because they get free healthcare, free transport, free this, free that, it's all paid. Like, remember I told you about 50% tax and 25% VAT? That's what pays for all this free healthcare, free transport, all this free shit. It's not free. Nothing's free in the world. There's absolutely nothing that's free. So imagine you only go to the hospital once every 2 years, but you're paying 50% tax and 25% VAT for free healthcare that you're not using. It's theft. It's theft. You can get insurance. You can get medical aid. You can pay in cash. It'll still be cheaper than this bullshit. 50% tax and 25% VAT. What the fuck? It's unbelievable. So yeah, Scandinavia, not a socialist paradise. In fact, the GDP is shrinking. And since the 90s, they've been rolling back these policies. They've been trying to axe a lot of these policies because it's killing their growth. If they keep this up, I predict that in the next few decades, you're going to see them fall in the global rankings of GDP. They're going to plummet, like what happened with Argentina. The same thing will happen with these Scandinavian countries. Mark my words, unless they have a change. And they keep alternating between socialist and capitalist, more free markets governments during elections. So we'll see what happens with them. But it's not sustainable, man. The GDP is shrinking. They need to switch up. Anyway, that's my message. I was ranting about socialism. I don't like to pray at the end of my videos. Dear God, thank you for this individual watching this right now. Thank you for making them all unique and guiding them on a path towards peace, prosperity, and purpose. Thank you for blessing this individual with amazing people who love them and take care of them and bring the best out of them, that you maintain the people that are there as well to do the same thing. Thank you for blessing this individual with a spirit of gratitude so they can give thanks for all the wonderful things in their life and be aware of all the good things in their life so that they have a lot to look forward to, and by giving thanks they can find peace and contentment and attract even more blessings. And let your presence be felt in this person's life so that they can know that you're there for them, that you see them, you hear them, that you're God, that you're real, that you love them and you're taking care of them. So good health, long life, and happiness over this individual and everyone they care about. In my name I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.